Hey, amazing parents, how are you doing today? Awesome, awesome. So I thought today that I'm going to share. I spoke at an event yesterday on parenting beyond behaviors. And to be honest, as I shared more and more on that topic, a lot of things came up from it. And for me, I wanted to really talk about the myths behind punishments. I know a lot of us grew up with punishment. There was everything was about if a child did wrong, straight away punishment. Punishment was the way to go. Punishment was the way to build character. Punishment was the way for them to be able to be respectful. There's all this stuff about punishment, but as years have gone by, we found out that you know what, those things didn't work, because if they worked, the society that we live in today will not be what it is. And we're not saying no consequences. I think that's the main thing. Whenever I talk to parents, I always make sure that I emphasize that point. We're not saying that our children will get away with doing wrong things, not behaving properly. We're not saying our children will get away with it. There's something called consequences. But the question is, does the consequence need to come with pain? You see, the punishments that we do, the raising of hands for hours, or the flogging, or the beating, or the sometimes even the insulting, as I even just thought about it now, my yeah, sometimes I've heard words that parents have used on their children. And sometimes with some of the young people that I work with, when they're saying those things, I literally lift my head up a bit, because I can't even comprehend hearing those words from a parent to a child, what it does to the child's sense of being, sense of who they are. That's a topic for a different day, because I'm definitely going to talk about that topic for on a different day. But I think today I want to share some of the myths that we hold on to while we're sticking and holding on to punishment. And the first one is that we think that punishment teaches respect. But fear is not respect. Fear is not respect. True respect grows from trust. The more our children can trust us, the more our children can see that we have empathy towards them. So the more that they see that, that's where that's where respect grows from. And respect is a two-way street. Fear is not respect. For your children to see you and walk a different way, or see you and stop and just be afraid, that's not respect. That's not respect. And if our children are afraid of you as a mom, afraid of you as a dad, then there's a gap, disconnection. They will not share a lot of things with you. Whoever they're fearful of, they're not going to share things with that person. And this is why the social media and everything now seems like a bigger influence platform for many of our young people. Because at home, there's the disconnect. So rather than them share things with you, they go find the answers on the internet. And that can be dangerous, as we all know. So punishment doesn't teach respect. That's number one. Number two, another myth is that if I don't punish, my child will not learn. But you know that children don't learn through your punishment. Yes, your punishment can get them to be compliant immediately, but is it the immediate compliance we're after, or is it the long-term transformation that we desire? Personally, I prefer the long-term desire, the long-term transformation. I want to correct my children in such a way that my children can reflect on what I've shared, and then be able to implement the better behavior as they go along. So that now that they've left home and gone to university, or they're now working, they don't need that fearful parent in front of them to say, don't do this and don't do this. They naturally just don't do it. And that's the key. So your children will learn without punishment. Your children will learn through your consistent guidance, because you're going to guide them. That's what it's about. Parenting is about guiding our children. It's not the punishment that guides our children. It's our communication to them, the way we speak to them when we guide them. It's the way we model the behavior that we want them to have, the way that we problem solve with them, not through pain, not through shame, not through humiliating them. No, it's how we guide them, how we model that value, those values that we want them to have. That's how our children learn. And I'm saying this from experience. I'm saying this from a lot of experiences of where we have seen we don't punish, but we teach our children consistently, patiently. Teach your children. Punishment is not the way. We also hear sometimes there's another myth that says punishment builds character. Character? Punishment? No way. Punishment doesn't build character. Punishment will give you the compliance that you need at that time. But as I've said, how sustainable is it? It's not punishment that builds character. Character is built from values. The values that you have, those healthy characters, they develop from understanding values, not enduring pain. Pain doesn't build character at all. No way. It doesn't. It's through the values. And that's another topic for another day. But we've got to start teaching more on values and modeling those values and speaking those values all the time to our children. That's what builds character, not punishment. Okay? Good. Another myth that we have is that if I punish harder, they will stop the behavior. Okay. And maybe that's worked for you because, again, as I said, the immediate compliance is what you think is the transformation. But immediate compliance doesn't mean transformation. It just means they're doing it to avoid the punishment. They're not doing it because they understand that what they did was wrong or that there's a better way to do it. They're only stopping just to avoid the punishment. But what happens when you're not there? What happens when they're in school? What happens when they leave your homes, when they become adults? And the fear is no more there because you're not there anymore. Do they continue? Or do they just go back now that the fear is gone? They go back to their old ways. This is what tends to happen in many cases. And you might, I want parents to stop talking about what happened in their own time, because our time was not, it's not their time. We need to stop always saying, but well, punishment worked for me. You might think it worked for you, but it didn't. You stopped the behavior so that you avoid punishment. But along the line, you learned things differently. It wasn't the punishment that made you learn. And I remember this story. My cousin shared a story with us a few months ago, and she said back in secondary school, her teacher, a maths teacher, there was something they were supposed to learn, and and she didn't learn it, so she didn't get it, but she kind of made a kind of she kind of not messed about in class, but she maybe cracked a joke around. So because she didn't know it, she was flogged for not knowing it. So after that day, she went back and learned that topic. She learned it so much that any question that was asked of her, she would know it. And so what she told us was that, you know what, that flogging, or the flogging that she got, made her learn the topic. I said, okay, I hear you. Because what you didn't want that teacher to flog you again, so you learned the topic. Fair enough. But are you telling me that it's the flogging that made you learn? So if between now and secondary school now and now, you've learned a lot of things along the line. You've learned so much. She's a top engineer. She's, top notch. Very beautiful cousin of mine. And then we started laughing because I said, okay, if flogging is what made you learn, then did you have to be flogged to learn and be on your engineering course and do all the things, the great things you're doing now? And we all started laughing. And that brought it home to us that yes, the flogging at that point, she learned the topic so that she's not flogged again. But that's not the flogging is not the pathway to learning, because you now have a whole set of years where you learned other things without flogging. So flogging is not the answer. You see what I mean? Punishment is not the answer, if you see what I mean. Okay. Oh, and then this other myth is another classic one where it says, my parents punished me and I turned out fine. And you know what I always now tell parents? I say, I'm glad you turned out fine. But can we do something different so that our children turn out more than fine? Fine is no longer enough. We want our children to even beat the fineness, and we want our children to go beyond that fineness. And that's going to require us doing something different. I think that's key. That's going to require us doing something different. And then the final myth that a lot of people think is that punishment and discipline are the same. And it's so not the same. No, 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 not the same. Mm-mm. Discipline comes from the word disciple. Training, teaching. That's what I was talking to the parents I was speaking to yesterday. Punishment is reactive, and it's about control. But discipline is proactive and it's about teaching. So we teach our children. And it's not easy because we've been so used to this punishment is the answer, punishment is the answer. So to be able to move from that and going into actual teaching and guiding our children, it will require some time, it will require some learning. But that's what life is all about. That's what life is all about. That's what parenting is all about. Parenting is all about learning and unlearning. And we need to start unlearning these myths that I've just shared now, where we think that punishment is the answer. Punishment is not the answer. They're natural consequences. They're also consequences that we can do to actually emphasize the character and the behavior that we need from our children. But it's not punishment that's the answer. And that's what I thought to share with us today. And as we go along, we'll share some more. Definitely molding our children's character starts with our values. It starts with the values in our homes. And that's going to be a different topic next time that I come online. But yes, trust that this has helped you. Let me know in the comment section, anywhere that you're watching this from, let me know which of those myths has been something that you have believed over the years. I'm going to repeat the myths. Punishment teaches respect. We know that's not true. If I don't punish my children won't listen or won't learn. We know that that's not true now. Punishment builds character. Mm-mm. Or if I punish harder, they'll stop the behavior. My parents punished me and I turned out fine. And then the final one, punishment and discipline are the same. So let's know in the chat box which of those myths that you believed in and what you're going to do differently now about those myths. So until next Monday, when I come back again to share on parenting, I'll see you later. You take care. God bless you. And remember, I am rooting for you all the way. Take care. God bless.